guys, welcome to the channel. James here. I've been saying for a while I wanted to get started on a YouTube channel. Kept talking myself out of it. Finally just said I'm going to do it, so here we are. Video number one, we'll see how it goes. But today I've got this little project put together for you guys. I'm going to be doing some brakes on my 2002 GMC Sierra. We're going to replace some pads, rotors, and calipers all the way around front and rear. Once we get the vehicle up on the air, I'll show you why I am replacing them. But for now, I've got the boxes set up behind me over here, so let's go over there and check those out. As you can see, guys, I've got everything laid out here. All the calipers, rotors, and pads that we're going to be putting on today. This kit is through Power Stop. I typically do like using Power Stop. They are a great quality product. Just looking at the pads here, they do come with more than what you would typically get from a parts store pad. Not only does it have break-in instructions here, but they include all the boots, little grommets and stuff in here. You can see all those. We won't need those as we do have brand new calipers that already have new ones installed. All of your hardware, this is kind of typical. It does include a pack of grease, which is great. Won't be using this. I do have some other stuff that I do prefer to use, but that is nice to have if you don't already. Front and rear are the same. They do all come with this hardware kit as well as the boots there. As for the calipers though, I did go with the powder coated red on all of those. Like I said, we are doing front and rear. This side is the front, it's a bit beefier. It has a dual piston design. This rear one is a single piston. And the calipers themselves actually come with some hardware. Don't believe we're going to use all of this, as we do have some with the pads as well. But one thing you do need to make sure you have is this little copper washer here. It does come with 2 of them. You are going to need both for every single caliper, so that's a total of 8 for the entire job. I'll show you what we need that for once we get to it, but make sure you don't lose it because you do need it. Coming to the rotors here, I did decide to go with a drilled and slotted design, a little bit of a upgrade than what we have there on the vehicle currently. Give us a little bit better stopping power with this big old truck. So without further ado, let's get it up on the lift and get started. Alright guys, got all the wheels off. Gives us much better view and access to everything that we need to get to in here. Now I did want to go over why exactly I am replacing these brakes. If we do look at the pads, there is still some pretty decent life on them. I'm not sure how well that shows up on camera, but we do still have some life on these pads. However, I'm going to go ahead and replace everything while I'm in here. If we look at the back of the caliper here, this is a bleeder screw. Typically that's mounted at the top side of the caliper. Now to show you exactly why I am doing this full brake job, when I was going around the truck looking over everything, just checking over, I did notice that this left rear caliper here on the vehicle is actually a right rear caliper. If we come under here, you can see that that bleeder screw is on the bottom side of that piston, which is no good. I'll show you the other side just for comparison. As you can see, that bleeder screw is all the way up at the top of the caliper there. So this happened due to somebody putting the wrong side caliper in this vehicle. So it has 2 right rear calipers instead of the left rear. Alright, got the camera set up. We're all ready to start rolling here. First thing you're going to want to do is remove the caliper from the bracket itself. So there's going to be 2 bolts holding that on. One up top here, one on the bottom here. Just so happened on this vehicle it is a T55. Tip that's always helped me is I'll go ahead and bottom out the wrench where it needs to be. Just give it a little smack. Sometimes that breaks it free. It helps you from having to put more strain on it than you really need to. And before we get that bolt all the way out, I am going to go ahead and other one as well. Once you get those broken free, we'll grab the electric tool and make that a lot easier. Sitting there telling myself in my head, put gloves on to show off the brand new parts that aren't even dirty. Forget to put gloves on once I'm touching the dirty parts. All right, so we've got the bolts out of the caliper now, so we need to get that caliper off. One thing that's always helped me is putting a little bit of pressure. A lot of the times you'll have this hole right here in the middle of the caliper, and you can get inside that rotor there and pull the caliper outwards. This compresses the piston inside the cylinder back here and allows you enough room to get that caliper off with ease, and you're not fighting it or trying to pry on it, trying to get it out of there. Just makes it a lot easier. Now that we've got that caliper off, we don't really want it sitting there hanging on that brake line. So what I'll typically do is I'll set it up here somewhere. That way we don't have strain on that line itself. And what also you can do is get one of these S hooks. I have them in various sizes, gives you different ranges. I also have some that are flexible, some that are really stiff. These are the stiff ones. I do prefer using these. However, that upper control arm works perfectly as a shelf as well. So we'll just set that right there for now. All right, I turned the wheel just a little bit to give us a better view of what's going on here. I am gonna go ahead and pull these old pads out, get them out of the way. Get that one out, and they can go straight in the trash. We don't need those anymore. Next up is gonna be removing these caliper bracket bolts from the spindle, and then that whole caliper bracket should come right off. Here we got our 18 millimeter. Right on those bolts. Break those free. And just like that. That second one out. Caliper bracket is off. All right, once you get that caliper bracket off, all you're left with is the rotor here. I straightened everything back up just to give us a straight look at everything. And some of these will have a set screw here holding it to the hub. It's only needed for assembly purposes. Sometimes it's missing, sometimes it's stripped. I just put them back just because it makes me feel better, makes me sleep better at night sometimes. So if they're there, I'll put them back. In this case, we don't have one, so we just pull the rotor off. This can now go in a scrap bin. If we look here, here's our hub bearing, hub assembly rather. If you look here, you can see it does have a good bit of surface rust. So I'm gonna go over it with a sanding pad real quick just to knock off that surface rust, make sure we don't have anything inhibiting a flush mating surface with our new rotors. So I'm gonna go ahead and sand this down. Safety first, so safety squints on. And if you look closely, you can see I still didn't get in between all of these tight spaces. I do have a tool for that though. All right, got that swapped out here. If you look closely, you can see that the center of this is hollowed out. That allows you to go straight over top of the stud and get all those really tight areas around that. We'll do that real quick. All right, as you can see, I got all that surface rust cleaned off there. Working with a flat, clean surface now. Now we're ready to start putting everything back together. So I'll go ahead and grab one of those new rotors, I'm sorry. Unfortunately for us, those are labeled, so we know exactly which one goes where. They are directional. All right, here we got our rotor. Like I said, those are labeled front driver side. These are directional based on which way the fins are going. So this will go on here just like so. However, in the package, a lot of metal components, especially when it's just bare metal, are usually coated in an oily film. It's not something that we really want on our brakes, so I'm gonna clean that off. What I like to do is I'll start with the rotor backwards, place it on the hub, clean it, flip it over, and clean the other side. So let's do that real quick. And this is just brake parts cleaner. You can buy it at any auto parts store. Now we'll just flip. And repeat. Alright, got our brake caliper here. All I did was remove these two bolts holding the caliper to the bracket itself. Caliper comes off, and then we're left with our bracket. I also went ahead and installed our hardware on the top and bottom. If you look, you can see one side is wider than the other. It makes it very easy going back on, as it'll only fit one way. And now that we have our hardware on here on the caliper bracket, what we're gonna want to do is go across this ridge right here and here, where the pads ride along it, cover it with a very thin coat of some brake parts lubricant. That's going to help prevent from any squealing or uneven wear and binding issues. Alright, got all that brake parts lubricant on there, and just to show you guys what I am using here, it is the ASE Delco silicone brake lubricant. All I did was rotated the hub back the other direction to help give us a little bit more access back here. All we're going to do is hold that caliper bracket up and position our bolt holes. And once we get those started, back to the power tools. All right, now let me grab a ratchet and make sure those are nice and snug. All right, now that we've got our caliper bracket on, next step is going to be our brake pads. Now that we've got the pads installed, next up is putting the caliper on. We're going to put this on the same way that we took the old one off. Just hold it up there over our pads, put our slide pins through. I did go back and put some extra grease on these slide pins. When I pulled it out, it was lacking a little bit there in the grease department, so looking a lot better now. As you can see, I've got the left front here all finished up. All that's left is disconnecting the line off the old caliper and putting it on the new one. However, I'm going to save that till the last when I'm doing all four at once. Everything's mounted, tightened, torqued, looking good. Have brand new pads in there. My battery is dying on my camera, however, so I am going to throw it on the charger and knock out that other side while I wait. Alright, got that passenger front side all finished up. Everything's bolted on. All that's left is swapping that line just like the other side. Alright, I've got everything set up here. Camera moved around, got you a better angle of the rear here, much closer up view. But again, same process as before. We're going to start by removing the caliper from the bracket by removing these two bolts here. Alright, so in this one here, I don't quite have the room to get inside the back of the caliper like I did on the front ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get in behind that caliper and just kind of pry it out this way. And it's off. Hold that up there out of the way. We'll get all these pads removed. And like I said before, I still have plenty of pad life remaining on these. If I wasn't going ahead and doing the calipers, I'd probably still run these for a while. Get the calipers out of the way. Two more bolts holding this caliper bracket on. We'll pull those off real quick. All that's left is removing this rotor here. Sometimes you might have to give it a little bit of a wiggle to kind of break it free. These older GM trucks all have a parking brake inside. As you can see that there, this is a good time to check that out if that's getting worn thin. I'd recommend go ahead and replacing that as well while you are in there. But this one still has plenty of life on it, it's still working fine. So we're just gonna leave it like it is. What I am gonna do while we do have this pulled apart though is go ahead and clean everything off with some brake clean. Get all that brake dust out of there, all those fine particles and debris. Just get everything cleaned up nice. Got our new rotor here, same deal as before. We're gonna throw it on backwards, spray it off, flip it over, spray it again. Alright, got our new caliper bracket here, ready to go back on. We'll just use those same 2 bolts from before. Just look behind here, got the fluid bracket. Start running those in by hand. I always like to come back through it after using a power tool, especially those ratchets. They don't have the highest rated torque on them, however they are very fast and very easy. So just make sure you are going back if you do use a power tool and just verifying, if not torquing everything to proper specification. Obviously your brakes are not something you want to fall off your vehicle while driving down the road. All right, then we're gonna take our brake pads, just set those right there in that groove of that bracket. Other side as well. Make sure everything's seated up against that rotor as close as you can, and then go grab your caliper. This caliper is a little bit different than most that I have worked on before. Not a lot of them have this bracket inside here. Just make sure, if your old one does have it, to make sure that your new one does as well. That way everything can go back together the way that it should. That's not doing anything. And that's going to wrap up installing everything on the driver's side here. I've got all the calipers, mounting brackets, pads, and rotors fully installed. All that's left is swapping that line from the old caliper over to the new one. So let me go ahead and finish up this last quarter here. I'll do that off camera since we did everything on the other side already. Give me just a moment and then we'll get right back at it. Alright, we've got all 4 calipers mounted, all 4 rotors installed. All that's left to do is swap our brake hoses from the old calipers over to the new ones. I did mention initially when opening the boxes that you should have 2 of these copper washers per caliper. What you are going to want to do is sandwich this in between the caliper, the hose and the bolt. If you can see where this little yellow dot is on the back of the caliper, that's where the cap goes in. So I'm going to pull that cap out, try to hold one of these in place as I transfer that line over to the new one, and then I'll need to pull the old washers off of the old one as well. That way they're not interfering with the fit of the new ones. So give me just a moment and we'll get all that sorted. All right, I went ahead and put our drain pan underneath our brake here. As I crack this line off here, I am going to start losing some fluid. It is starting to make a mess. No worries, we've got plenty of brake clean to get that all cleaned up. Looks like this washer got stuck on the bolt, so I'm going to have to fight with that a little bit to get it out of the line. Get this old caliper out and let that start to drain. Was able to get that washer off with a little bit of fighting. Took some wire cutters here and just cut it, rotate it around, cut it again. Now that's all good. Oh, threw the bolt in the floor. And the other washer popped right off. That's perfect. One washer on the bolt. Go ahead and get that all the way down. Pop your cover out of your new caliper. put the bolt through the line and go ahead and put that other washer on the back side of that. And start hand tightening it. Make sure those threads engage. Now I just ran it down real quick with the impact. I did not tighten that bolt down. That is something you are going to want to do by hand. Don't want to put too much torque into that bolt as it is hollow and fluid flows through it. It is very susceptible to snapping. That's something we really don't want, and I'd like to get home tonight. So go ahead and finish this up here. Like I said, you don't want to go too tight, just enough you can feel those copper spacers kind of squish in. Once it stops squishing down, and you can kind of feel that in your ratchet. So now that this line's on, I'm gonna go ahead and clean up all of the fluid we got on the rotor and the pads while that was dripping, and then go around the rest of the vehicle and install the other 4 brake lines. All right, now that we've got all 4 calipers mounted, all of our lines swapped over, and everything connected, what we're gonna do next is bleed all of that air out of the system that we just allowed to get in by cracking those lines open. And how we're going to do that is we're going to actually use a machine that forces brake fluid through the master cylinder down the lines. That way all we've got to do is crack that line open, let the air flow out until we've got clean, clear fluid running. Alright, I've got everything hooked up here to the vehicle. We've got this adapter that goes onto the master cylinder into this quick connect fitting, and the hose runs back to the side of the machine here. I do have it set at about 30 psi. That's how much pressure it's going to put behind that fluid. So I'll get this machine running, get the truck back up on the lift, and we'll start cracking those bleeders open. Start with our longest brake line, so that's going to be the passenger side rear. That's the furthest away from the master cylinder. Start with that one, then go to the driver side rear, passenger side front, then driver side front. Having a bit of an issue getting this side to bleed right off the bat, so I am gonna lower the vehicle back down, get inside, pump the brake pedal a couple times, see if that helps out any. There's just the random things you run into while doing any sort of project like this. So let's see if we can get it figured out. Alright, so we're finally getting those rears to bleed. I did go ahead and go around the vehicle, 1 caliper at a time, went ahead and broke them free. Got the majority of that air out of the system. So now I've got that rear passenger side bleeding. I got inside and I pumped it real slow a few times, just forcing some of that old dirty fluid out of the line. Seems to be flowing a lot better now. So we'll keep going on, get everything else bled out, and then I'll be right back. All right, now that we've got all of those kinks worked out and we've got this going the way it should, give you a quick rundown. So don't, let's see, here's a light to show you what's happening. Just have this recovery bottle here attached to the bleeder screw. That's all. Just to collect that fluid, keep it from dropping in the floor, making a big old mess. Then all we want to do is go around, this being the very last one, crack that free. You'll start to have fluid flowing down into the recovery bottle. You can already see that level going up right there. We're just going to let that flow for a little bit, get all that old dirty fluid out of the lines, get everything flushed out, and then we'll be all done. All right, well, we've got the flush finishing out over there. Just going to go over the break-in procedures here for these particular pads. We're going to start out doing 5 aggressive stops, well, not stops, but decelerations from 40 miles an hour to 10 miles an hour. Next, we're going to do 5 moderate decelerations from 35 to 5 miles an hour. And then we're going to drive around for about 5 minutes, let everything cool down a bit. guys, that's gonna wrap up everything we had planned for today. Got all the brakes installed, got it back on the ground, got all of our wheels torqued down. All that's left now is to go break those pads in. I'm gonna do that off camera, as it is dark outside. Not very good visibility. Just break them in, make sure you have a good mating surface before you go drive out there on the road. Getting everything updated, upgraded. It's gonna make me feel a lot better driving it every day. Just got back from that test drive, got everything broken in, just cleaning up now. Just to give you a few of my thoughts on everything. Everything worked phenomenally, exactly the way it should have. Had a little bit of a hiccup there with getting the rears bled, but we were able to work through that, no big deal. I've got a bunch of extra parts, so I'm gonna get all those cleaned up and sorted through. Throw all my boxes out and take my butt home. Everything is feeling much better, much shorter stopping distance, not as much effort, so big upgrade all the way around when it comes to the brake performance. No noises, so that's all good. Still just picking up everything around here, trying to get out of here. It's going on about 10:30. I've been here since 7 this morning, so it has been quite a long day, but thanks everyone that's watching. If you've made it this far, comment, let me know you made it all the way to the end. If I did anything wrong, tell me what you would have done differently. If not, thanks for watching.